The first thing you need to understand about your 20s is that they are not designed to make you comfortable. They are designed to make you capable. There is a profound difference between the two. Comfort asks, how can I feel good today? Capability asks, what can I become if I commit myself to something difficult for long enough? And the choices you make between those two questions will quietly shape the rest of your life. When you are young, time feels almost unlimited. This is one of the most dangerous illusions you can have. You look at the years ahead and imagine that there will always be another opportunity, another chance to become disciplined, another moment to learn the skill you have been avoiding, another year to repair your finances, another decade to become serious. Because the future feels distant, you underestimate the value of the present. But life does not change all at once, it compounds. A person who spends 5 years developing a valuable skill is not simply 5 years more experienced than someone who ignored it. They may have built a reputation, a network, confidence, knowledge, and opportunities that reinforce one another. The same principle works in the opposite direction. 5 years of distraction can produce weak discipline, shallow relationships, financial dependence, and an uncomfortable realization that time has passed without producing meaningful progress. This is why your 20s matter, not because you must become rich by 25, not because you need to have your entire life planned before 30, and certainly not because everyone else seems to be moving faster than you. Your 20s matter because this is when you are constructing the foundation upon which your later life will stand. Think about a building. Nobody walks into a construction site and complains that the foundation is not impressive enough. It is underground. Nobody sees it. Nobody applauds it. Yet the entire structure depends upon it. Your early 20s are similar. Much of what you build during this period will not immediately produce visible rewards. You study while other people are partying. You practice while nobody is watching. You save money while others spend it trying to impress people. You learn to control your emotions while others continue reacting to every insult, rejection, and disappointment. You develop your body, your mind, your communication, your character. For a while, it may appear that nothing is happening. But something is happening. You are becoming difficult to stop. The modern world constantly encourages you to measure yourself through immediate results. Followers, money, clothes, cars, relationships, titles, recognition, but these are often the visible consequences of invisible qualities. And if you spend your 20s obsessing over the visible consequences instead of developing the invisible qualities, you can create the appearance of progress without actually possessing substance. This is where many people lose themselves. They want the rewards before they have developed the capacity to handle them. They want money without financial discipline. They want influence without competence. They want respect without self-respect. They want confidence without having endured enough difficulty to earn it. They want a powerful life while maintaining weak habits. But reality does not negotiate. You cannot consistently produce extraordinary results with ordinary habits. And you should be careful about becoming addicted to comfort, because comfort has a subtle psychological effect. The more you avoid difficulty, the more threatening difficulty becomes. The difficult conversation you avoided becomes harder to have. The skill you refused to learn becomes more intimidating. The business you were afraid to start becomes surrounded by years of excuses. The physical discipline you postponed becomes increasingly uncomfortable. Avoidance strengthens fear. Confrontation weakens it. This is why your 20s should contain deliberate difficulty. You should intentionally place yourself in situations where you must learn, adapt, fail, and recover. Not because suffering is automatically valuable, but because challenge reveals your weaknesses, and weaknesses you can see are weaknesses you can work on. If you never test yourself, You will build an identity around an imaginary version of yourself. You will believe you are disciplined because you have never committed to anything difficult enough to expose your lack of discipline. You will believe you are courageous because you have avoided every situation that could make you afraid. You will believe you are capable because you have never attempted something that could make you fail. Your 20s should challenge these illusions, take on responsibility, learn something difficult, work on something for years rather than weeks. Become comfortable being a beginner, learn how money actually works, learn how people work, learn how your own emotions work. And most importantly, learn how to direct yourself when you do not feel motivated, because motivation is temporary. Character is what remains when motivation disappears. There will be mornings when you do not want to work. There will be days when your progress feels invisible. There will be moments when somebody younger appears to be ahead of you. There will be failures that make you question whether you are capable of succeeding at all. This is where psychological strength is developed. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" And you start asking, "What does the person I want to become require from me today?" That question changes everything. Because your future self is being created through negotiations with your present self. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you cast a vote for a stronger identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you increase your self-trust. Every time you finish something difficult instead of abandoning it when excitement disappears, you teach your mind that discomfort does not control you. This is the real wealth of your 20s, not merely money, not merely achievements, self-command. The ability to decide what matters and continue pursuing it when the emotional excitement has faded. And there is another important principle. Do not waste these years trying to prove yourself to people who will not matter in your future. The desire for approval can consume an enormous portion of youth. You buy things to impress people. You change your personality to fit a group. You pursue relationships because you fear being alone. You accept opportunities because they look prestigious rather than because they move you towards something meaningful. But attention is a currency. Spend it carefully. The people you surround yourself with, the information you consume, the habits you repeat, and the goals you pursue are all shaping your internal environment. If you spend every day consuming distraction, comparing yourself to strangers, and seeking validation, you should not be surprised when your mind becomes restless and your ambition becomes fragmented. Protect your attention, protect your time, protect your ability to think. Because once these years are gone, you cannot purchase them back. You may change careers at 35, you may start a business at 40, you may reinvent yourself at 50. Human beings are capable of transformation at almost any age, but that does not mean time is irrelevant. The earlier you develop powerful habits and useful skills, the longer those advantages have to compound. So do not panic about your 20s. Use them. Do not obsess over having the perfect life. Build the foundation. Do not ask whether you are already successful. Ask whether you are becoming more capable every year. Because the greatest mistake you can make in your 20s is not failing. It is spending your most flexible years becoming comfortable with a life you secretly do not respect. What makes your 20s so important is not simply the amount of time you have, but what you choose to accumulate during that time, and this leads to a distinction that most people never learn early enough. There is a difference between chasing success and building leverage. Most people are taught to chase money, titles, recognition, followers, and approval. They look around and ask, who is winning right now? Then they try to imitate whatever appears successful. But this is a shallow way of thinking. You should not be asking only what produces rewards today. You should be asking what makes you increasingly valuable tomorrow. Because money without leverage has a limit. You can work harder and harder, But if your income depends entirely on the number of hours you personally spend working, you eventually reach a ceiling. Your time is finite, your energy is finite, your attention is finite. There are only so many hours you can sell. Leverage changes the equation. Leverage means developing something that allows one effort to produce results repeatedly. A rare skill, a strong reputation, a valuable network, a business, intellectual property, technology, communication ability, specialized knowledge, leadership, an audience, capital. These things can continue producing value beyond the immediate effort required to create them. This is why your 20s should not be consumed by the question, how can I make more money this month? A better question is, what can I learn or build now that will make me more valuable 5 years from now? That question requires patience, and patience is becoming increasingly rare. We live in a culture of immediate feedback. You post something and want likes immediately. You start something and want results immediately. You learn a skill and want recognition immediately. You invest effort and want a reward immediately. But important things rarely work that way. The strongest forms of value compound quietly. Imagine two people entering their 20s. One spends years jumping from one temporary opportunity to another, constantly looking for the easiest way to make money. Every time something becomes difficult, they move on. They gain fragments of experience, but never develop deep mastery. The other person chooses a difficult field and spends years becoming exceptionally good at it. At first, there may be little visible difference. But after several years, the second person has accumulated knowledge, confidence, relationships, credibility, and a reputation for competence. Now the difference becomes enormous. The first person is still searching for opportunities. The second person attracts opportunities. That is the power of leverage, and this is why you should be careful about confusing activity with progress. Being busy does not necessarily mean you are building anything. You can work 12 hours a day and still remain in exactly the same position if your effort does not increase your future capacity. Ask yourself, what is this effort producing? Is it giving you a skill? Is it improving your judgment? Is it expanding your network? Is it strengthening your reputation? Is it creating an asset? Is it increasing your independence? If the answer is no, you may simply be exhausting yourself. Hard work matters, but hard work without direction can become another form of avoidance. Sometimes people work constantly because they are afraid to stop and think about whether they are actually moving in the right direction. Strategic effort is different. You are not trying to do everything. You are trying to become exceptionally useful at something that matters. This is where the psychology becomes important. In your 20s, you will feel enormous pressure to keep up with everyone else. You will see someone making money online, someone buying a house, someone becoming famous, someone launching a business, someone traveling constantly, someone getting married, someone becoming successful at an unusually young age. And suddenly you feel behind, but comparison can destroy strategic thinking. You begin abandoning your path every time someone else's path looks more attractive. You become reactive. One month you want to become an entrepreneur. The next month you want to become a content creator. Then an investor, then a freelancer, then something completely different. The problem is not experimentation. Experimentation is valuable. The problem is having no period of sustained commitment long enough for competence to emerge. You cannot discover your potential if you constantly interrupt yourself. There is a psychological temptation to chase whatever gives you the fastest emotional reward. But the most valuable skills often begin with frustration. You are bad at them, you feel stupid, progress is slow. Nobody notices. This is exactly where most people quit. But if you can tolerate the period in which you are not yet impressive, you gain an enormous advantage. Mastery has an awkward beginning. You must be willing to look inexperienced before you become experienced. You must be willing to produce mediocre work before you produce excellent work. You must be willing to study while others assume you already know enough. Your 20s are an ideal period for this because you can make mistakes, while the consequences are often more manageable than they will be later. Use that freedom intelligently. Learn to communicate, learn to write, learn to negotiate, learn technology. Learn how businesses operate, learn how to manage money, learn how to read people without becoming controlled by their opinions. Learn how to solve problems that other people find difficult. These abilities compound because they transfer across almost every area of life. And then there is reputation. People underestimate how powerful reputation becomes over time. If people repeatedly experience you as reliable, competent, thoughtful, disciplined, and useful, your reputation begins working for you. Opportunities arrive through introductions. People trust your judgment. Your work receives attention. Doors open with less resistance. But reputation is not created through one impressive moment. It is created through repeated evidence. Every promise you keep contributes. Every commitment you honor contributes. Every project you complete contributes. Every time you behave professionally when nobody is watching contributes. Your 20s are therefore not just about building a career. They are about building a personal identity that other people can trust. And don't overlook relationships. Your network should not be viewed as a collection of people you can exploit. That is a crude understanding of power. Strong relationships are built through mutual value, respect, generosity, and reliability. Find people who are serious about their development. Spend time around people who challenge your assumptions. Learn from people who are further ahead. Help people who are still beginning. Your environment will influence your standards. If everyone around you treats mediocrity as normal, ambition will begin to feel strange. But when you enter an environment where excellence is expected, your own standards begin to rise. This is one of the quietest forms of leverage, proximity. You become influenced by what you repeatedly observe, so stop asking only, "How much money am I making?" Ask, "What am I becoming?" Because income can disappear. A title can disappear, a job can disappear, but competence travels with you. Your ability to think travels with you. Your reputation travels with you. Your skills travel with you. Your relationships travel with you. That is what you should be accumulating. The goal of your 20s is not to look powerful. It is to become difficult to replace. Don't spend these years trying to convince the world that you are valuable. Spend them becoming valuable. Because when you build real leverage, you no longer have to chase every opportunity. And once you understand that your 20s are about building a foundation and accumulating leverage, you arrive at the most uncomfortable truth of all. Your future is being created by what you repeatedly do today. Not by what you intend to do, not by what you promise yourself you will do someday, not by the person you imagine becoming. By repetition. This is difficult for people to accept because repetition is invisible. One lazy afternoon does not appear dangerous. One unnecessary purchase does not seem important. One night of distraction does not destroy your future. One missed workout does not change your body. One day of procrastination does not ruin your career. And that is exactly why these behaviors become so powerful. The consequences are delayed. You can make a poor decision today and still feel perfectly comfortable tonight. The cost appears later, months later, sometimes years later. This is how people accidentally construct lives they never consciously chose. They make thousands of small decisions without understanding that those decisions are eventually going to become their circumstances. Your habits are not simply things you do. They are instructions you repeatedly give to your mind. Every time you postpone difficult work, you teach yourself that discomfort should be avoided. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you teach yourself that your word has weight. Every time you allow someone to disrespect your boundaries because you fear rejection, you teach yourself that approval is more important than self-respect. Eventually, these lessons become automatic, and once behavior becomes automatic, it begins to feel like personality. You say, "That's just who I am," but often it is simply who you have practiced being. This is why your 20s are such a powerful period of transformation. You are not only choosing a career, you are reinforcing an identity. The person who wakes up and consistently does difficult things becomes different from the person who consistently avoids them. The person who learns to control their spending becomes different from the person who constantly lives for immediate pleasure. The person who learns to sit alone and think becomes different from the person who needs constant stimulation. The person who can tolerate rejection becomes different from the person who organizes their entire life around avoiding it. Over time, these differences become enormous. This is the principle of compounding applied to character. People understand compound interest when it comes to money, but they rarely understand compound behavior. Yet your habits can accumulate just as powerfully. A small improvement repeated for years can transform your life, and a small weakness repeated for years can quietly destroy it. This is why you must become extremely careful about what you normalize. If you normalize being late, eventually lateness becomes part of your identity. If you normalize unfinished projects, eventually quitting becomes your default response to difficulty. If you normalize negative relationships, chaos begins to feel familiar. If you normalize wasting hours every day, productivity begins to feel unnatural. The danger is not one bad decision. The danger is repetition without reflection. You need to periodically step outside your own behavior and examine it. Ask yourself, if I continued living exactly like this for the next 5 years, where would I end up? That question can be uncomfortable. Maybe you spend 3 hours every day scrolling. What happens if you multiply that behavior across 5 years? Maybe you constantly spend money you do not have. Where does that lead? Maybe you avoid difficult conversations. What happens to your relationships? Maybe you keep delaying your goals until you feel ready. What happens when another 5 years pass? The future becomes much easier to understand when you stop looking at your intentions and start looking at your patterns. Because your patterns are forecasting your future, this does not mean you should become obsessed with perfection. That is another trap. Some people become so afraid of making mistakes that they become paralyzed. They want the perfect routine, the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect strategy. Life does not work that way. You will make mistakes. You will waste time. You will trust the wrong person. You will choose the wrong opportunity. You will sometimes lose discipline. The important question is not whether you fall. It is how quickly you become conscious of what happened and correct your direction. Self-awareness is one of the greatest advantages you can develop in your 20s. Watch yourself, notice what makes you weaker, notice what makes you stronger, notice the environments where you become distracted, notice the people who consistently bring out your worst behavior, notice the situations where fear controls your decisions, and then make adjustments. You do not need to reinvent your entire life overnight. You need to change the pattern. One of the most powerful things you can do is reduce the distance between recognizing a problem and acting on it. If you know you need to exercise, start. If you know you need to learn, study. If you know you need to save money, change your spending. If you know a relationship is destroying your peace, establish boundaries. If you know you have been avoiding an important responsibility, confront it. The mind loves complexity, because complexity creates excuses. You start thinking about 10 different strategies, 20 different possibilities, and 50 reasons why now is not the right time. But action often begins with something much simpler. Do the next necessary thing. Your 20s should teach you this discipline. Stop waiting for the perfect emotional state. You will rarely feel completely ready. Courage is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the ability to move while uncertainty exists. And there is another pattern you must resist: comparison. Comparison is especially destructive when you are young because everyone appears to be moving at a different speed. Someone will be richer, someone will be more attractive, someone will be more successful, someone will find love earlier, someone will travel more, someone will achieve something you wanted before you did. If you constantly measure your life against theirs, you will become psychologically dependent on external timelines. You will start making decisions not because they are right for you, but because you are afraid of appearing behind. This is how people enter careers they hate, relationships they do not want, and lifestyles they cannot afford. They are not pursuing their future. They are escaping the judgment of other people. You need a longer perspective. Your 20s are not a race against everyone around you. They are a period of construction. Some things will happen quickly. Other things will take years. Your responsibility is to build something that can survive time, and this is where discipline becomes freedom. That sounds paradoxical. People often think discipline restricts life. In reality, discipline expands your options. If you control your money, you have more choices. If you control your emotions, you have more choices. If you develop valuable skills, you have more choices. If you maintain your health, you have more choices. If you can work consistently, you have more choices. If you are not controlled by every impulse, you have more choices. Discipline is not about becoming a machine. It is about refusing to become a prisoner of your impulses. Your future self is going to inherit everything you repeatedly practice today. That future self will live with your financial habits, your health habits, your communication patterns, your relationships, your skills, your reputation, and your emotional tendencies. So, when you make a decision today, imagine that you are not making it for the present version of yourself. You are making it for the person who will inherit the consequences. Will that person thank you, or will they wonder why you kept choosing temporary comfort over permanent growth? That is the question, because your future is not waiting somewhere in the distance to be discovered. It is being assembled right now, quietly, through ordinary decisions, through what you do when nobody is watching, through what you repeatedly tolerate, through what you repeatedly practice, and eventually the invisible becomes visible. Your habits become your character influences your decisions shape your circumstances, and your circumstances become what other people call your life.